Today we'll be talking about the seamless AI-driven workflow, how you can use Spira and Rapise together and with Inflectra AI to test applications and build out requirements. But also as a sort of special extra benefit, I'm also going to be showing you some of the latest agentic tools that we've been integrating with an MCP as well. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about generally AI across the software lifecycle. I'll be then talking about how we're using AI in our products today and in the future. And then I've got a live demo. And the live demo is covering a lot of interesting use cases and hopefully will open your eyes and show you some really interesting ways you can use AI to build, develop, test, release applications. So where are we in terms of the state of AI today? Well, I think, AI has been around for a long time, first of all. I remember using it in high school, but back in the 90s. I'm that old. But it was very much a primitive technology, and machine learning has been around for a long time as well, in the same way that the internet was around for 40 or so years for the web browser. But really what happened is generative AI, ChatGPT, was launched in November 2022, and that really showed people you can use AI to be an assistant that would generate content for you, write code for you, and allow you to chat with it and basically be a digital intern. And that was because we have large language models. We found that if we have a large enough amount of content in a pre-trained transformer or GPT, it can provide a lot of content without having specialist data science, without having a specialist model trained on your data. You can use techniques like RAG and so on to take an existing very large model and have it do a lot of very useful things in business and consumer use cases. And that really opened up, I think, the world for what we can do with AI without having to build everything from scratch yourself. And so that first generation, we've seen it being used for things like coding assistants, like copilots, blog assistants, content writing, video editing, summarization, a lot of those general content use cases. We're now in the second phase, or exiting actually the second phase of AI, which is the digital employee. This is where you basically have AI now able to do things for you. So we're seeing the rise of what are called AI agents. These are basically tools that, as opposed to just writing content, giving me a code snippet, writing a blog for me, which they can obviously do as well, it can actually take action on my machine locally and remotely and start to act and sense. And it does that using two technologies behind the scenes: a large action model, examples, Claude computer use, OpenAI Operator, and Nova Act. And in fact, in the Inflectra suite in Rapise, we're using Claude computer use as our agentic tool. It allows you to do things such as, we'll see later on, install software, open a web browser, take actions, and then a large vision model goes with that, and it allows the AI to see visually images and make decisions based on that. So we're now giving effectively AI sensors, which is sight, and also actuators like touch. It can do things. So the big difference is AI has gone from just being an intern that writes content that you can use to being a full-fledged employee that you can tell it what to do. It will do it, and you can come back and review its work. And of course, we're now entering the third age of AI, or generative AI anyway, the digital team. And that's where you have multiple agents starting to work together using technologies such as MCP, A2A, and ACP. And we're going to show that in action today as well. And in general, this is how MCP works. You have an MCP client, which is the tool that you can chat with and talk to. It's your assistant. It can then go out and write code, do other things for you on your behalf that call other technologies. So it can call web services, it can write code to access local storage, it can call other agents using other technologies like A2A, and basically allows one AI to talk to other AIs and start to build a team that works for you. And that's really amazing because it allows you to have a new user interface that's basically a singular chat interface that allows you to access anything in the system. And so again, it's going to change how systems are built, developed, and tested in massive ways. And we're going to see a bit of that in action today. So that's sort of a little bit of where we are in the AI journey in the industry. I'd like to also talk about where we are around using AI in the software lifecycle before we get into the live demo. So AI has been changing software development in the last 2 years. Everyone's probably seen Copilot, but beyond that, this year there was the big rise of vibe coding. So this is where you can write a prompt and say, I like an application that does these things. Can you take that application and build it for me? And it will build it for you. And then you can maybe test it somehow, and then you can release it. Now, with vibe coding, the big benefit is it allows you to be a non-technical person, a business user, a startup of one. You could build an application and without having to be a coder, and it will build the application. It works. Now, the problem with this has been it works the first time, and then when you want to make a change to the application, it's a completely different application the next time, which, as you know, with testing, will break every automated test you have. Also, it's very good for throwaway apps like a team scheduling tool or something you might use once or twice. But a long-lived enterprise app that you have to support over multiple years, there's been challenges of how can you make it write code that's maintainable, supportable? How do you change the application? How do you evolve it over time if it's been written from a series of throwaway prompts? So that's kind of what started at the beginning of the year. And then around June, July this year, we've now seen the beginning of spec-driven coding. Kiro from Amazon was the first to release this. It came out, I think, in June, July at the New York Summit, where I was at. And this allows you to take requirements written in English, we'll see this, and it allows you to basically have it build an application. So requirements now become the new code, effectively. Requirements, tests, and all the information. But English or other natural languages become the new coding standard. And in fact, today, coincidentally, Google just released Gemini 3 and its own version of Kiro as well. I forget what it's called, but it's basically a brand new tool that Google just released today, which does effectively the same thing I'm going to show you today. So Amazon obviously was the first with Kiro. Others are following along. And the idea is you take the agentic power of vibe coding, where you can write a prompt and it builds you the app. But now we have the structure of requirements and test cases and a full software lifecycle. But now we can combine that to hopefully then allow us to build, if done right, a maintainable enterprise application that can then be built using AI. So you now have a digital team of programmers that are basically being instructed what to do through requirements and requirements specification documents. And it's called spec-based delivery or spec-based development. And this is an example of what it looks like. You have on the left-hand side the schematic. On the right is an example of what it looks like in terms of the code. It's basically a series of markdown that in a human language describes what the system will do. We would call these requirements or user stories or use cases or BDD, variety of formats. But this is what the AI uses to build the application. The question is, how do we test the application? So the exact same way, we can use these exact same specs to build test cases, which can then be automated. So with that, what we're seeing is a move away from traditional, and this is obviously designed to be a little bit controversial, Agile is dead, but the traditional view of Agile as being code is more important than documentation. It literally says that in the manifesto. It's being reversed. What we're going to see in the future is the things on the left-hand side will be things that humans will be doing more of, and the things on the right-hand side, machines or digital teams will be doing more of. So the code will be written by a machine or agentic AI tool. The documentation will be at least reviewed, if not maybe written, or combination by a human digital team. Certainly humans will be involved in it. Things like Scrum ceremonies become less important if you're going to have machines doing the coding. So there'll be more emphasis on risk management and making sure that what it's doing is fit for purpose. Code reviews are already being done a lot by GitHub and other tools that can look at code, look at vulnerabilities, look at coding styles. People will be looking at the code reviews that have been done by machines to see how does it fit our architectural patterns? Is this application maintainable, scalable, and all those good things? And the same thing, software testing as an activity, as in me writing code to do testing or me doing manual testing, are probably going to become relics. Increasingly, it'll be machines doing a lot of the testing, but us as humans reviewing the test reports, reviewing the analysis to understand, can we go live? Is enough testing done? Have we missed anything? Asking the AI questions to understand what has it tested. So again, we'll become more like digital managers rather than necessary doers of the testing. So it's a big change for the software development industry, and it's going to happen over the next 2 to 3 years. But at Inflectra, we realize this is the future. And so we want to be ahead of that. And so in today's webinar, I'm going to be showing you how Inflectra AI and our tools come together to support that. Before I do that, just a couple of scare statistics. The CEO of Google predicts that 80% of all code will be written by AI in 2027. That was a bold prediction in 2024 when it was made. I suspect now it will be maybe less bold. It's actually seems to be coming true. If you look at all the new tools coming out and what we're hearing in the industry, ChatGPT has pretty much taken away the traffic with Stack Overflow. It ingested all the content. People are not going there as much. If you search on Google, instead of getting a link to a Stack Overflow article, you're mostly getting an AI overview that gives you the answer directly sourced from AI, from sources like it. So that's obviously a big change. So we're relying AI much more on writing code. In the UK, we've seen a 300% increase in code quantity, decrease in code quality, and Gartner expects 33% of all enterprise software to include AI. And if you think about AI applications, we, in the development of Inflectra AI, which we'll show you, we found a lot of issues in developing it where 99% of the time it would work correctly. And on a demo like today, it would do something weird like write all the test cases in English and all the test steps in Spanish for no good reason. And what we found was it's very hard to test a non-deterministic system. So we're adding AI to enterprise software applications at an increasing rate, and it's harder, and we have yet more code being developed. Testing is increasingly going to be the bottleneck. So with that being said, that is the problem space, which is we're writing more code. It's going to be harder to test because it's going to have more agentic AI, non-deterministic functions that don't do the same thing every time. And humans are being involved less in the writing of code, more in the reviewing of code. And we know that the quality may deteriorate or decrease as the volume increases. So therefore, it's more important than ever that we have tools that help you manage projects, manage risk, manage testing. So in our platform, for those, again, who are new to the platform, these are the different tools we offer. We have released our Inflectra AI agentic AI platform. It was released earlier this year around March and May, and built on some of the early work we did a year and a half ago with our Spira apps, where we had some early adoption of AI in Spira. You could write test cases and identify risks using the AI. We made that a native as part of Inflectra AI in the middle of the year. And then we've also extended in the latest release of Rapise 8.6, we have now extended Inflectra AI functionality into Rapise. Rapise did have AI before that, but it meant you had to bring your own LLM, which is fine. But the benefit with Inflectra AI is we're now able to offer a flat rate, unlimited usage subscription in both products. So if you sign up for a cloud version of Spira, Test Team, or Plan, and add Rapise and add Inflectra AI, you now have unlimited AI usage across both products. No need to count tokens or worry about usage. It's all baked into the system. As time goes on, we're going to be adding more information being shared between Rapise and Spira to improve the quality of both applications and allow the AI to have more context. For example, as we start to add functionality in Spira to maybe we'll talk about this, read screenshots and do more work to extract requirements from other sources, we can feed that information into the automation tools to help with the testing as well. And as you saw in my previous diagram, if we're going to be using Markdown and spec files to help do development, we're going to use those same things for testing as well. It all becomes part of accelerating the development testing loop using AI. Again, for those who are not familiar with the company, we've been around for 19 years. We've got a lot of enterprise customers. We work in a variety of mission-critical industries. And the key thing is as we add AI into our products, we have done so responsibly. We are looking at these kinds of customers in mind. So we've got privacy, security, availability, and responsible AI practices built into our Inflectra AI. So one of the other benefits of using Inflectra AI over the bring your own LLM is we get to manage that for you, manage that risk for you. And also we built a lot of safeguards and guardrails into our AI, into Inflectra AI for both products. So let's talk about Inflectra AI quickly before we go into the live demo. On the Spira side of things, Inflectra AI can generate artifacts. I'll be showing this live. It can create backlogs. It can create analyze requirements. It can analyze progress now. It gives you insights into the schedule of your project, your sprint or your release. Are you on track? Are you behind? Which is really great. You can also, using Rapise, take those same manual test cases that we have, automate them using AI. We can also generate test data, and also we can use some of the vision-based testing tools to take a screen and look at it and get qualitative feedback on that. So does this button look good? Does the screen look good? Things like that. On the future roadmap for both products, on the Spira side, we're looking, as I mentioned earlier, to have more tools to help you get existing data into Spira. So one example will be you can upload a screenshot of an existing application. Maybe it's an ERP that you don't develop yourself, but you have to test. You don't have the requirements for it, but you still got to test it. How do you do coverage analysis? Well, we could extract the requirements from the screens. Similarly, if you're working in a more regulated sector, like maybe insurance, banking, life sciences, aerospace or automotive, there's lots and lots of policies you have to meet, lots of rules and regulations. Not only are you testing the application against the functional requirements, against the backlog, you're also testing it against the DORA Act if it's a bank in the EU, or 21 Part 11 if it's a medical device or a medical system. In each of these cases, you could upload, the plan is you'll be able to upload a PDF of these specifications, requirements, user manuals, and the AI will extract all the content out of them, the images, all the text, and use that to build context, giving us more context about your application so the AI can be more responsive and more context-driven. On the Rapise side, we're looking and doing lots of active research right now on self-healing, which is sort of the holy grail of automation. using smart locators. And also we are working actively to build what we call AI-generated control libraries. What that means is, in plain English, is if you have an ERP like Salesforce, Rapise already has logic in it to understand how does Salesforce work? How do the grids work? How do the trees work? How does all the UI elements work? We built that by hand many years ago, and we maintain it. With AI now, we can do this automatically. So that means if we see a new technology that you may be using that we haven't seen before, we can now build support in it for Rapise to give you much more advanced automation much more quickly, because the AI will do it for us, which is really exciting. The other thing we've done is we've integrated, talking about digital teams, we've integrated both Spira and Rapise with an MCP server. And so as teams start to look at using MCP and tools like Kiro from Amazon with Spira and Rapise, the great thing is because we have MCP in place, it allows you to integrate our tools into your tool chain really easily. So for example, you can use Kiro to get the specs from Spira. You can then use MCP to have it launch the tests in Rapise. You could also have it integrate and interact with GitHub using MCP. Another example we've come across is a client wanted to integrate Rapise more directly with Azure DevOps, not because they're not using Spira. And so because Azure DevOps has an MCP server, Rapise is an MCP server, and I think in this case it was Visual Studio Code, and Klein has an MCP client, they can integrate them all together without writing any code themselves. So the great thing is MCP lets a non-technical or less technical user integrate systems using existing APIs without writing any code themselves. So really, MCP allows you to basically compose different tool chains as you need, which is pretty cool. We're going to see that in action in today's webinar as well. So let's imagine, as you know, if you've ever worked with us, we have a sample application called libraryinformationsystem.org. It's this one here. It allows you to log into a website, create books, and view authors. It's a great little sample app we use for demoing Rapise and Spira. But let's imagine we didn't have that, and we're going to build it from scratch today, and we're going to test it. So we're going all in on a completely greenfield situation. So let's go ahead in Spira, and let's first of all go ahead and create a new product. So I'm going to create, this is one I did last night, but let's create a brand new one. Okay, it's going to be called Library Information System Project for Webinar 2. Okay, so we're going to put that in there. We could describe the project. We're not going to do that. We'll do that in the requirement later, but you can certainly do that, and that will get passed to other tools if we do. I'm going to choose a unique template, so it has no custom fields, just the basics, because we don't need that right now, and I'll put it in the default program. So I'm doing that. I've got a brand new empty product, nothing in it whatsoever. Once it's created, here it is, and go into requirements. Oops, wrong one. Requirements. It's completely empty. So again, it's completely bare bones, good starting point. Now, one thing I want to do before I get going is I will want to add some users to my product. So I'll go into the team membership, project membership. And that's partly because in this example, Rapise is connecting with a different user. It's connecting with Fred Blogs. So I need at least him to be a member of the product. I'll add a few members. We'll add those. We'll make them managers. Keep it simple. Hit save. So now I've got, if I go back, I've got 4 members of my project. I've got myself, the admin, plus 3 other users, including Fred Blogs. And when we go into Rapise, which I'll be showing you a bit later on, if you go over here and go to tools, settings, Spira test, you can see I'm using that user here. That's why it's really important. But we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so I've got my brand new project, and I'm going to build my new application. It's an application for managing books in the library, authors, books, exactly what we have in this application, but I want to start from scratch. So let's get rid of that. So to do that, I use some requirements. So I've got them here. So I'm going to create a new requirement in Spira. There it is. As a user, I want to be able to manage an online library. And I'm going to give it just a bit more context, so that's a bit vague. I'm going to describe what I want it to do, and I'm going to put it right here. So the functionality of the system should include the ability to log into the system with the username librarian and password librarian. You should be able to view a list of books, create a new book, and edit the existing books. The book should have a name, a genre, and author fields. This is basically mirroring the functionality of our existing app. Okay, so I've done that. Super simple. Let's go ahead now. And now, could I build an app from that? But maybe. The thing about that is it's not a very well-defined application. It's basically at the level maybe of vibe prompt. But the great thing is using Inflectra AI, which is right here, I can take this and I can build it out further. So I can go here and I can say, let's generate my child requirements. So the nice thing with AI is I can take a little sip of water while it's running. Okay, so it's correctly identified the four main parts of this. It's identified that I want to be able to manage an online library. Let's say that's my Epic. I've got four different, say, features under that. As a librarian, I want to log in. I want to edit books. I want to create books, and I want to view books. Now, that's probably at the feature level. So we've got an Epic and maybe some features, but I can go one level further. The login, I think, is pretty straightforward. But the other three, I think, could be decomposed one more level. So I'm going to do the same thing again. And now I'm going to ask it to create children under each of these. So I'm now building out my backlog for this new piece of functionality. Okay, I've now got my requirements matrix for my new piece of software. I'm very excited. So what do I do now? Well, I obviously need to develop this. I need to test it. So how would I develop it? Well, to develop it, I can actually have the AI do some things for me. So I'm going to have it write the tasks. I'm going to do it in 2 different batches. Currently, we only allow you to select, I think, 1, 2, 3, 10 at once. So I'll do it in 2 batches. So I go to Inflectra AI and I say, okay, take those requirements. Can you create me some development tasks? So I'm basically building out a more detailed backlog with the implementation details. So it's going to run recursively through each of the different requirements, and it's going to build out the tasks. It runs through each one, generates the tasks. Requirements 1290. We've got a couple more to go. It's this one. It's third from the bottom still. Think about how long it's taking to write all these tasks and write all these requirements. I mean, I've done this in a few minutes. It'll be done in a second, and I will have effectively a backlog for a new piece of software, and I will have detailed descriptions of each feature. There we go. And I will have implementation tasks. So I've now got a project plan. Oh, I forgot to do, no, I need to do the last set here. These 4 I'm doing separately. So I go here, and I'm going to do the same thing here, create tasks for the viewing a list of books. So the AI is basically built my backlog, and it's now built up my implementation plan. Okay, still going. And once it's finished, okay, so it's created the tasks. It's giving me a list of all the tasks here. Let's look at what it did. So I'm going to look at let's look at the login one. So I want to be able to log into the system so I can access the library management functionalities, and it describes here what it should be able to do. If I go to the task section, you can see here, it has written down some of the basic features you'd need for a login interface. I need to be able to design a login interface. I need to have compliance with security standards. I need to have a secure password storage. I need to have implement session management. Let's look at one of these just to give an example. You can see it's got the name of the task. It's got the description here. I click on some other ones. It's a nice, well-written set of requirements and tasks. Note that everything we generated is AI generated, so we do tag it as AI generated. And if I go back to my requirements list, the requirements also will be tagged as AI generated. Notice that I haven't, as a human, reviewed these. In real life, before we do any development or testing, we'd really want to review these in more detail. Now, I can also build out a test plan. So let's say I want to test some of these features. I'm going to build test cases for some of these. I won't do it for all of them. I'll just do it for some. So let's go ahead and build test cases. So it's now going to take and create test cases for some of these requirements. Oh, there's a question here. While the tasks are being created, if I navigate away from the page, will the tasks be continued in the background? I don't know, actually. You can if you open another tab, it's fine. If this tab is replaced by something else, I suspect it will not. You should generally want to keep a tab open. Certainly open other tabs. You can control click on anything. Just don't close this tab. Is my understanding, because it's running as JavaScript on the page. While it's running, let's see if there's any other questions I can answer. For test data generation, the agent AI can anonymize the data from production. No, for test data generation, it's currently what Rapise does, which I can show you. It generates synthetic test data. It doesn't actually, it doesn't anonymize real data. Now, I guess you could ask it to do that. The built-in data generation feature just generates synthetic data from its knowledge of the wider world. Like get me a list of company names and stock prices and stuff. But it could anonymize things. I mean, you could use it to do other tasks. It's a general purpose AI assistant in Rapise, so it could do that too. But that's not the primary feature. Okay, meanwhile, while I was talking, it has built some test cases for me. So I can now log in and I can update a book's title. So I can do the saving. And let's say I want to be able to, view a list of books and sort. Let's create test cases for that as well. Create a few more. Now, there are guardrails built into the system. So if it thinks a test case is trying to do something it shouldn't, it may come back and say, I can't do that for you. So if you try and say, I want to test how to make a bomb, for example, it won't do that. Or test how I can log into an application and hack it. So you may get into issues where it may come back and say, I'm not going to do that, just to warn you. And that's part of our safety. If you ever come across that, let us know. We can verify why it's blocking that request. Okay, so it's finished doing that. So I've now got a task plan, and let's go to look at one of those. If I go into my login in Spira, I can see I've got my requirement, go to test coverage. These are my test cases. So I've got a happy path, for example, test I can log in with librarian. And let me test, and I can also got an example where it doesn't work. Let's go in there and go to test unsuccessful with, let's say, incorrect credentials. And so we're trying librarian one. Makes sense to me. Deliberately make the password wrong. So we've got a series of test cases. So you can see right away, it has built me out my test plan and my requirements backlog. There's a couple of other things we can do with Inflectra AI, some of which is relatively new. One thing is these requirements, if I go down to one of the ones lower down, as a librarian, I want to enter the book's title so I can accurately add a new title to the library. Let's look at that requirement. It's written here. We can actually have AI review the requirement. So now I'm having AI actually review the AI. And I can analyze it against what's called the EARS standard. EARS is the standard, the easy requirement syntax. It's the same standard that the agentic development tools like Kiro use to build applications. So when I showed you those spec files, they actually use EARS as their standard. So it made sense for us to do the same thing. We analyze the requirements using EARS, and it's going to analyze it. And it will give me a feedback. It says, this is a 3 out of 5. It uses a good pattern, like as the user, I want to do something. I've identified the role and the purpose, but I have not added format validation, length restrictions, and things like that. So I can actually create an attachment, which will be a stored attachment of the analysis. I can create tasks for me to go fix this, but I'm being lazy and it's in a webinar, so why not have it improve it for me? So let's let it do it for me. So it gave me a bit more of a well-written requirement. So I can accept that by hitting save, or I can undo it by hitting refresh. Let me accept that. And because I've changed the status, I need to change the priority. Oh, it needs a release. Let me move the status back so I can save it. There we go. Perfect. And you can now see I've got my new requirements description. And if I go to the history tab, I can always see exactly what it changed word by word, which is really handy. You can see what it removed in red, what it added in green. And because it's been modified by AI, we've now got 2 tags. We've got the AI generated and AI augmented. So if it was written by a human and then modified by the AI, you'd only have AI augmented. If it was written by an AI but not edited by the AI, you'd only have AI generated. This has both. These can be removed after they've been reviewed by a human. Back to the human in the loop and human supervisor concept. So what else could we do? Well, let's go to a different requirement. Let's look at this one here. As a librarian, I want to save details to books. Let's say I wanted to have a set of scenarios. I want to use maybe Gherkin, have BDD support. So AI can do that as well. If I change it to a use case, I hit save. I will change. Oh, let me define some releases. Actually, I'll undo that. It's fine. I can put the release later. I will put me in priority, because I want to show you the release functionality next. So I've just saved that. And now what I can do is I can now made the type change. I can now say generate BDD. So it is context sensitive. Because it wasn't a use case, it wouldn't let me generate BDD. That option was hidden. Now that I've changed the type to one that supports scenarios, I can now have it create the scenarios for this one requirement. And if I scroll down, you will now see I've got my 3 different scenarios here. Saving changes, verifying changes, and then checking that after the changes were done, that the book numbers have been modified appropriately. So again, 3 different Gherkin syntax. If you use our BDD Spira app, you can also export this as a feature file, which is even cooler as well. So I've taken my requirement, I've written test cases for it, I've generated tasks, I've improved the quality of my requirement. We know that the better written quality requirements we have, better for testing. I've also written tasks. Now, the other thing we can do in Spira that's very useful is consider what risks could there be in this feature? What could go wrong? Obviously, testing will find some of those risks, but we do have a risk management feature built into Spira So we can use the AI to also identify potential risks and even mitigate them. So now it's generating some risks. There they are. They will appear in the associations tab right there. I can also click on them here. I'll control click, open a new tab, and there's one of my risks. So data inconsistency due to manual overrides is a risk. It describes the risk, why it could happen, how it could happen. Let's go ahead here and give it a probability. Let's say it's likely, or maybe it's something that's possible. Impact is critical because it's data consistency is a big issue. You can go in here, you can assign a probability. We now get an exposure score. And then we can ask the AI, well, how could you mitigate this risk that you identified? And now it's going to come up with some mitigations for that risk. So it's come up with 7 different mitigations. They're right here. And based on those mitigations, if we put those into practice, then let's say we can now reduce the probability to really unlikely, and we will reduce the risk here. We'll say the mitigations reduce the risk exposure. Risk exposure. And lucky there's a spell checker. So there we go. So I'll save that. And now if you go to the change history, you'll see, if I refresh, we've got that tracked, exactly what happened. The mitigations were added, the probability and exposure have changed accordingly. So that's how you can use the AI to do some of the risk analysis. So the last thing I want to show you in the Spira before we get into the Rapise and the Kiro side of things is, in terms of progress, we've also added some functionality to help you analyze progress. So let's look at what I mean by that. Well, let's go to the releases section and create some releases. We haven't done that yet. So I'm going to create a release. I'll create 2 releases. We got a first release. We got a second release. And let's go assign some of my requirements to this first release. So this is the first version of the functionality. I'm just going to make a bit of room here so I can see the release field. And let's say we're going to have the login functionality, the viewing functionality, which makes sense. You need to view the books. Maybe there's the creating a book, but maybe the editing isn't yet available. So in version 1, we're going to do the creation stuff, but not the editing. We'll do that in version 2, in the next version. Okay. So it's easy enough. We'll just assign that all to release 1. We'll hit save. So now we've tagged that with release 1. I'll just finish saving. And while it's doing that, let me check if there's any questions. Love the risk function. Thanks. I do too. Okay, so now let's go to release 1. This is the release. Now, one of the challenges with Spira is it gives you some good information. Now, these requirements have not actually been tested yet. Everything is not run, and none of the tasks have been completed yet. So everything's sort of still in progress. So at this point, it's hard to really get a sense of, are we likely to make this release? What do you think? So AI can actually take a look and give us an opinion. So I'm going to ask it to analyze this release's progress. Now, this release hasn't started yet, so it's hard to know exactly how it's going to work and how it's going to look. As we complete tasks and do things, it will obviously change. But even so, it can still give us a nice summary. First of all, it'll tell us, what is the release about? Well, this release is a major release focused on enhancing the functionality, allowing us to view things and add things. Where the requirements get to 0% and no test executed, the release is at high risk of not meeting its planned schedule. And then this summary gives you a summary of the requirements in the release and what their status is. So that's very handy. But if you go up to the top, just above that, I think this is even better. What is the risk and progress analysis? The release is not underway and is at 0% with only 1 day elapsed out of 30. With only 30 days remaining, the release dates I didn't change, so I left them at 30 days. The release has not started, indicating a significant risk of schedule slippage. All requirements are in the to-do stage, and no test cases have been executed yet. So there's the lack of validation and a potential risk of undetected defects, which I think is really, really interesting. Currently, it's a text file it generates, so I can take this and I could say, create an attachment or add a comment. It now creates it as an attachment, so that way, if I navigate away from that sidebar or it scrolls up and I'm doing something else, I've got a permanent record here of what it suggested. Now, I open it up in a new tab, you'll see it right there. So I've got a nice permanent record of the analysis of this date and time. And if I wait to the end of this webinar and I do it again, we can see an updated version of what it looks like. So it's pretty cool. That's basically allowed me to do an analysis of my progress. And you can do that for any of the releases or sprints in the system. And in future, we'll have separate buttons that will allow you to generate these 3 risks as actual risk artifacts. It doesn't do that yet. That is part of our roadmap to do that. So that's pretty cool. So just to recap the Spira piece, because that's kind of the end of the Spira part of the demo for the most part. Using Inflectra AI, I've built an entire project specification. I have written all the test cases. I've written all the tasks. I've analyzed some of the risks. I've created one BDD. I could have done more. I did that in probably about 10 minutes, and I'm obviously talking in a webinar. In real life, if I was doing this more seriously, I could probably get that done in 5 or 6 minutes. Now, obviously, I still have to go through everything. I have to review all those requirements. I haven't gone through them all in much detail. Does this match my expectation? I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I really need to do that work. So before we do the next part, which I'm showing you, we would in reality have a human go in, review the releases, review the requirements, review the tasks, have a human audit. But I'm going to pretend that's been done and move to the next page, which is, I want this application, right? I'm going to test it, but I need to have the application. So I'm going to go over here to Kiro, which is an Amazon tool, not an Inflectra tool, but we're Amazon partners. And we got an early preview of it. So this is Kiro. It looks a bit like Visual Studio Code, and it is actually based on Visual Studio Code, the baseline, but it has something connected to it. So MCP, ahead of time, before the webinar, I went in and I connected it to our Spira MCP server. And if you expand it, you'll see these are all the different MCP tasks available. Now, we've got a special one built in called Get Spec. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to build my application for me using what's in Spira. And to do that, I'm just going to go, hold on one second. This is my secret sauce here, my cheat sheet. Okay, so I want it to go in. I'm going to tell Kiro, can you build the full product specification of a Spira product? And I need the project ID, which is 67. Okay, 67. And I'm going to go. I'll help you generate the full product specification. It's calling me the MCP tool, and I'll say run. Let me get the requirements, design, tasks, and test cases. So now it's getting everything from Spira that it can. It's got the requirements. It's got the design specs, getting the tasks, the implementation plan, basically. Yep. It's getting the test cases. Got those. Great. I've achieved everything I need to make your project. So now what it's doing is it's reformatting everything into the way it understands things. So it's going to create the requirements as a file. It's going to create the test case and tasks as a file. So we'll let it work. So while it's working, it does take a little bit of time to do this. And just so you know, it's using the MCP server from Spira to get the data. To interpret everything, we're actually using Claude Sonnet. We're using it connected to my Amazon account. So I've got an Amazon queue for a subscription linked to my Amazon account, and Kiro is connecting to that. So in terms of where is the AI, where does the AI live? The Inflectra AI that we use in Spira, that lives in the Inflectra AI suite. That's using our instance of Amazon. When I'm doing this work, I'm actually going directly to AWS because this is an AWS tool. So you can use an AWS subscription. There's other options as well. You can use other models. But right now I'm using my Inflectra AWS subscription, Amazon Q subscription to do this part. When we go into Rapise, I'll be going back to using the Inflectra AI. So we have different AIs available in this demo today. So what it's doing is it's creating the spec files, the requirements, the design. Now, it does take a little bit of time to do that. So while it's doing that, let's go to some questions because I see there's some questions. Okay. At the beginning, we had, hold on, done. So does the Inflectra perform impact analysis of requirements? So currently we do analysis from a risk standpoint, and we don't currently look at code changes to determine the test coverage yet. That is something we're looking at doing, but we haven't got that particular piece yet. Exploratory testing, that's where you can ask Rapise using AI robot to go out and do testing of an application following a set of human written scenarios, and we'll show you that. Do you have test through the loop options? Now, for self-healing, that's not yet available in Rapise using AI. We have an older non-AI self-healing, which is not going to be covered today. That's in development. The idea there is it will potentially not need much human in the loop. It should be able to use vision to find a object that's moved and automatically find it. If it succeeds, it will give it a pass. If it fails, you obviously could then tell it to try again. So it will attempt to do it without needing a human in the loop. it'll be more as a human reviewer than necessarily in the loop. I think that's what you'll see a lot with what we're doing here. It isn't a human in the loop in the sense that as it's going through its operations, I'm being called to look at every step. I'm going to basically let it finish what it's doing and at the end review it. Okay, let's see what it's doing here. Okay, so while I was talking, it has finished reading all the data from Spira. Kiro has now interpreted it. Now, Kiro has a one flaw, in my opinion. It generates a requirements doc, a design doc, and a task doc. It does not generate a test case doc. Yet again, tests have been forgotten, but not forgotten by us. So actually, our specification implementation in Spira is a little bit more advanced than the one that Kiro expects natively. And we actually give it a test case markdown file as well. So I can tell it to do that as well, because it was already downloaded from Spira. So I will ask it, can you also create a test cases MD file? And it will basically build out a test case file. So let that run. While it's doing that, let's have some more questions. Let's see. Is your Inflectra AI based on MS Copilot or specific? Inflectra AI is actually using Amazon Bedrock behind the scenes, and it's using a variety of Amazon models. It's something that we're building ourselves. You can use Spira with OpenAI on Azure, not so much Copilot. And if you do that, it's basically using one of our Spira apps. So you could do that as well. Can you insert API or JDBC calls to create data? You can do that in Rapise using using our web service plugin or our database plugin as well. The automatic generation of test cases, is it Delta mode? Currently, it does not. Currently, when you create test cases in Spira, it generates a full set for every requirement. And when you regenerate, it creates a whole new set. But we are aware that's something that people want to do, is be able to generate a Delta. And what about the matrix traceability? Yes, if you create requirements using AI and test cases with AI, all of that's going to be in the standard reports, just like the regular stuff. I'm using Spira 8.15. There's a question, which version am I using? And for the risk exposure, have you a graphical risk matrix? There's a risk matrix in Spira as well, yes. So while that's running, doing its thing, cancel creation. I think it ran out. There is a timeout in Kiro, so that's what I've noticed. So I also noticed we are running short of time on this webinar. So what I'm going to do is, as in a good cooking show, I'm going to jump over to one I did earlier. So what I did is I did this exact same thing, and the next prompt I will tell it is, can you create the application? And when you do that, Kiro will actually, not only does it build the specification file, but it will actually build the application for you. And we're running a little bit of short time, so I'm just going to jump over to one I did last night. It's exactly the same, except it created the system already. Here it is. And here you can see it finished what I was doing before. It created the test cases file. There we go. Oh, no, hold on. Where is it? Yep, created the test cases file, and it also created I then said, can you create the entire application for me? It creates the entire application, all the JavaScript files, all the files, and then it basically builds me a README. So it's finished building this application, and it's built me a README. This is what the application does. It's built me a usage manual. So it's built everything I would need as a developer. It's even built me the structure of the application, where it all lives, how it's been designed. So from requirement spec, I basically have an application. So all I need to do now is basically view the terminal, and I should be able to just do npm start. Node start. Let me get this right. It's right here. Oh no, actually I was right. npm start. And it's now launching my application. So hold on. Yeah, that's ready. So let's go over and see what application it built. It's over here, HTTP localhost 3000. And there's my application, a library information system that we've built from Spira using a combination of Spira's ability to write requirements and Kira's ability to build an application from requirements and test cases and all the other artifacts I gave it. And there it is. Now, how do we bring in Rapise into this picture? Great question. So let's go ahead and now do that. So here's Rapise over here. I've connected it with Spira. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to refresh to get my new project. So let's go ahead, and I need my new project, which is Library Information System Project for Webinar 2. And let's see, I see the one I did earlier on. I may need to reopen it because it may not have updated that list, or maybe my user doesn't have access. Let me make sure. So I'm just going to close Rapise and I'm just going to reopen it just to make sure that it picks up my project. So while that's opening up, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now take those test cases from Spira that we just generated, and I'm going to basically open those in Rapise and automate them using our AI. So to do that, all I need to do is go to my test cases. I'm only going to do a subset today for the webinar. So I want to put this into their own folder. So I'll create a new folder called login, and I'm going to put I'm just going to do the login tests. So we're going to put all the login tests into my folder. So I'll do a filter. There they are. I'm going to select them all, and I'm going to drag those into my login folder here. And there's my test. So I've now got an application over here, which Kira built for me based on my Spira spec. And I've got my test cases here, which I'm going to test against this application. So, okay. So to do that, I go to Spira dashboard, and I go to, there it is, my project, which is an empty project. And so I want to go create a new framework in that project. So let's go ahead and go File, Create New Framework. And I want to call it LIS Webinar 2. It's a web framework. Yep, that's fine. And I'm now going to, let's go ahead and synchronize this with Spira. Okay. That's fine. Yep, agree, that's all good. So what it's doing is just setting up the framework and synchronizing it with Spira. So now my Rapise framework is now linked to that new project. I've got a new framework for a new project. Now, I can go into here manually and add the test cases, but since they're already in Spira, I'm going to use a special feature we have. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to just quickly import Rapise utility module. Okay, and this will allow me to quickly download all my manual test cases into Spira. So what I'm going to do now is I will go here, expand it, and I will go do invoke manual, right click, invoke. It's doing a few things. And I'm going to tell it I want to bring in the login tests. So I want to load exactly. So I'm going to bring in that folder. I'm going to load that folder in. And you can see it's building it out slowly. I'll wait for it to finish. And what this does is this imports the manual test cases in that one folder into Rapise, so we can now begin the automation piece. Okay, it's done. So you can see these are all my test cases you saw in Spira. They're the same ones we see over here, but now they're in Rapise. Now they're still, at this point, they're just manual. So let's have a look at that. Close some tabs. So let's look at one of them. Let's start with the successful case. Happy path testing first, then we can move on if we have time into one of the failure ones. So if I look at this, expand it, you'll see this is the manual test, so it only has manual steps, like that. But really what I want is to have AI do some of this for me. So let me go use my magic wand. I can convert that into AI steps. Look at that. And now my manual test is now ready for automation. So it can now, based on that, begin to do the automation for me. Now, the one thing we have to do still, which is still a step that we need to do as a human, is we need to be able to add the objects to this test so it knows what's on the page. We are looking at using some tools to make this easier and more AI-driven and automated, but this is still the one step we have to do. So let me go ahead and hit the record button, and I'm going to click OK. It's now going to bring up a copy of Chrome, which I can then open up my application in. So let's wait for Chrome to open. Okay, and I'm going to go to HTTP. Oh, sorry, I need to do it here. I need to go to HTTP localhost 3000, and that will bring up my new Hero built application. And I'm just going to use the learn feature, Control and 2. I'm going to learn the username. I'm going to learn the password. And I'm going to learn the login button. I think that's all I need. And I'm going to hit finish. So I've just added those UI elements to Rapise. Okay, fine. And if I go, I don't need that anymore, get rid of that. So you can see here, I've got my objects there. a login button, password, username. Okay, so now I can now this is ready to play, except I have to do one more thing, which is I need to ask the AI to take these manual tests, clearly manual tests here, or steps, I should say, and I want to automate them. So I use the AI panel, which is now appearing here, and I'm going to use the little magic wand here to generate the necessary code to implement these. And this is using AI. AI is now reading, I should explain what's going on. AI is reading the different steps, and it's turning it into the appropriate code, effectively, to run the test. And it will appear here once it's finished. Now, once it's done that, it's now playable. Now, it relies on the object names here. It's actually reading the object names it sees here in the context and knows which ones to use. If you have already built a framework of your own with page objects and a complex set of functions and reusable methods, it uses that as well. So one of the things we did is when we designed this, it doesn't just simply write spaghetti code. It actually looks at all the different tests you have, all the objects, all the page objects, all the modules. So your test framework that you've built, it reuses everything that it sees there first. Only then will it then look for a login button or a button that it has to get from the browser itself. So it's designed to be as reusable as possible and make the most modular code as possible, not just click on everything that it sees the first time. So that's a really important design decision. So you've now got here a series of actions. So it's got the username, the password, it's going to click on it, and then it's going to verify that it logged in afterwards. Okay, let's see. So let's go ahead and play it. So we can go in here and play. So again, there's no test script. It's just simply these 4 steps. Let's go ahead and play them. Launch the playback engine. And I'm going to hit OK. And there we go. Let put the login, put the password, hit the login button, goes to the dashboard. And OK, it got to the first view, and then it realized I'd never learned what a success is. It needs to verify that it got in correctly. So it's looking for something called dashboard to know that it logged in. So actually what we'll need to do is we go back to our test. Again, back to the human in the loop. These 3 steps work correctly, but it says check if redirected to the library management dashboard. The expected result is you should be redirected. So it was looking for something called dashboard, but we never actually learned an element. So all I need to do is I'll just do one more thing. I'll go back to record. Yeah, that's fine. Sorry, the zoom window's right in the way now. Okay. And I will just learn. I'm just going to do the learn function, and I'll just learn the whole page here. Okay. Finish. Okay. And now what I'll do is I can go to the show AI panel, and now I have another object. Let's see if what it will do. Because it will then attempt to regenerate this now that it knows there's something else. We'll see. So yeah, it figured it out. It figured out that library information system is the dashboard. So notice that it was context aware to realize the nearest thing it had to a dashboard was the main navigation. That makes sense. And now if I hit play, save that, it should hopefully play successfully. And I'm just going to log out. I haven't put a code. I didn't put a code in to reset the test, so I need to manually do that. So you can see I've taken basically a natural language test case that came from Spira that I imported along with all the other ones, and it is now playing that and generating the code dynamically. And this is obviously a very simple use case. It can do much more complicated ones as well. So it's going to do that. There we go, passed. Excellent. The last thing I want to do is, how would I run that from Spira? So to close the loop, very easy. I'm going to go back to my Spira dashboard here. And I'm going to go, you can see every Spira project has a default test set. So I don't have to go create one. So I'm going to go into my default test set. And since I've only got one test that I've got ready, the rest I haven't got time unfortunately today to do, I'll mark that as checked. That includes it in my test set. You can see here. And if I change that from all to what's included, you can see there's one test included in my set. And I can just go here and say, execute. So let's do that. So now it's using Rapise launcher. And now it's going to hopefully run that. Yeah. So we'll do the exact same thing. Oh, I need to log out first. Oops. We'll get there quick enough. And it will now play it back, but this time we'll get the result in Spira. Let that run a second. While it's doing that, let's see if there's any questions. Is Kira creating unit tests? Kira can create unit tests. I didn't ask it to, but when I did the first time, it did create unit tests, and I did create an API test. So I can actually show you that. Let me do that a second. So, okay, and when that's finished running, if we go into Spira, and you go, I'm just going to jump into the one I did earlier. And if we go into the project, you can see when you run it from Spira, and you go to the test runs. When I did it earlier on in my test, I actually had it run the correct credentials, and I had it run a failed test with the incorrect. So this is the past one that we had, and you can see it ran through and it did everything correctly. And I deliberately had a failed example where it ran through, and I deliberately didn't learn one of the objects, and you can see here it got to that page, and it then gave me a screenshot of where it failed. So basically, using the AI, I'm able to write my tests using in natural language, or in fact, in this case, I just imported it straight from Spira as a manual test case here, and I can use the wand to basically turn that into an automated test case, and then using the AI dashboard panel, I can basically have it automatically turn that into executable Rapise scripts. And it uses whatever objects it's seen, and if an object is missing and you play it back, you can just add the object and it will dynamically regenerate to know to use that. Now, there's some other use cases we have, which I won't have time to fully show, but just to give you quick context, so that they were asked earlier in the Q&A, if I go to one of my other examples, we do have support for synthetic test data generation. So, for example, let's look at that quickly. If I go to RVL here you can see this is an example of a test. This is some test data. This test data was generated using the AI dashboard in Rapise. All I did is I went into AI dashboard, and I used one of the built-in commands, which is, can you create a list of books and authors and genres with ISBNs? You do that. I then asked it to, can you generate books published in England, for example, just so you can use the prompt to refine it. And then I basically use the apply button, and that will then push it back. I'll put it at the end. A list of books there. So you can regenerate a new list of books. So you can use the AI to generate synthetic test data, whatever fields you want, and it automatically gets pushed into a map. The other things you can do in the AI dashboard, you can also generate tests from images. You can also have general code assistance as well. There's basically a co-pilot in Rapise where you can ask it general questions about your test. So lots of functionality there. But just to recap what we did, I think we've come to the end of our webinar today. But in an hour, what I managed to show you was I can create requirements, an entire project in Spira using the AI functionality to build the entire project plan. I used Amazon Kiro to build out the entire application. And the question was, are there unit tests? It actually created unit tests, and it created some API tests, test and service layer. I built the entire application during the demo. And then using Rapise, I can take the exact same set of manual tests that Spira generated and use that to test that exact same application. An application I've never seen before because it was literally just generated from Kiro as we needed it. So, again, there's a lot to show in an hour, but hopefully it was interesting. Let's see. Some questions I'm going to answer. For those who can stay a bit longer, I will try and get to some of the other questions. Can we write our own BDD scenarios? Yeah, you could do that manually in Spira. You always could. And there is a syntax highlighting built in. The AI is just an option to generate them. You don't need to do that. I know you're short on time. But does Rapise work with desktop-only application? Yes. Rapise has libraries for different kinds of application. It can do mobile, web, and desktop. And on the desktop side, it can do Windows apps, it can do Java apps, it can do Qt. It's got a variety of different libraries. If you go to tools and libraries, you'll actually see some of the different technologies here. So it can do web. These are some of the web technologies. It can do mobile apps. Here are some of the different extensions for web apps. Here are the different desktop technologies we can use. Here's the different libraries we can use. So we've got some built-in libraries for different applications running on desktop, running on mobile, running on web. So lots of different options there in terms. It can even do mainframes running in a terminal emulator as well. Let me look at the, where's it gone? Sorry, the Zoom keeps hiding the, there it is, Q&A. Okay, is the automatic code generation within Rapise automatically updating? In Rapise, it automatically regenerates and updates. It doesn't just generate more code. So Rapise is a little bit more intelligent to do that. Can we couple the code generation automation with CI? Yep, you can run Rapise from a CI/CD pipeline. one thing we released in Rapise 8.5 very recently, again, I won't be able to show it today, but it is released, is we did release a cross-platform execution agent, which is designed for running in a CI/CD pipeline. So if you go to cross-platform, there it is. We've now released basically a Node.js package, and that lets you run Rapise automation scripts on Windows, Linux, Mac, containers, and any number of different CI/CD pipelines. So you mentioned Jenkins in the question. We can also do GitHub, GitLab, Jenkins, ADO, and AWS code build. Cool. So fascinating product, great cook show. So there was a lot to show you today. Hopefully it opened your mind to what we can do with AI. We can do things like use Spira to do the project management. We can use Rapise to do the testing, and use other tools like Kiro. I only showed 3 different tools. You could also use things like Cursor and Klein. The great thing with MCP is it lets you orchestrate these different tools together to work, to basically have it be the different parts of your team. So Kiro can be your development team, Rapise is your automation testing team, and Spira is your product owner, project management team, and risk manager BA team. And they all work together as a digital team. So hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Thanks for all the great questions. Thanks so much, everyone.